from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, your liberty-loving Latino amigo at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Happy to be with you this evening. We're live. It's the Thursday night edition of the program. If you want to join us on the program, feel free to give us a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4Valdez. And an eventful day here in New York City. I can tell you that El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, made his way into the Bronx, to the South Bronx, for a rally. I'm going to bring you as much of that as we have. We have some clips from that. I'm going to give you some of my anecdotal experience at the event as well. And a couple of other things that are going on today. Biden... The biggest story continues to be that Biden is looking for a meme manager in a desperate bid to regain youth support. That's reported on the Bongino report, which I think is really, really funny. You've also got the RFK Jr. Celebrating Harvey Milk and the gay rights leader that was accused of grooming minors as we head into Pride Month real soon. That's probably not the best look for him, but maybe it is. Who knows for that crowd? I don't know what to tell you there. And there is signs that indicate we might have another left-wing summer of violence. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But I want to start off with President Trump's opening remarks. He was at the Crotona Park in the South Bronx, New York. Listen to this.
I'm thrilled to be back in the city I grew up in, the city I spent my life in, the city I helped build, and the city that we all love, New York City. And I'm here tonight to declare that we are going to turn New York City around, and we are going to turn it around very, very quickly. We're going to bring safety back to our streets. We're going to bring success back to our schools. We're going to bring prosperity back to every neighborhood and every borough of the greatest city in our land. We're going to reduce taxes. We're going to bring businesses and big taxpayers back to New York. Gotta bring them back. Gotta bring them back. And we're going to make New York bigger, better, and more beautiful than ever before. And that includes right here in the Bronx. And it's going to be done and funded starting on January 20th, directly from our great and beautiful White House. Is that okay?
That, of course, is El Trompito. Now, he came out moments after Byron Donalds took the stage and hyped up the crowd. And let me tell you, the crowd was pretty hyped. What was really, really cool to see was how eclectic this crowd was, right? And I posted a couple of pictures. I saw my buddy John Tabacco, who's going to join us on the air in a little bit from Newsmax. I saw him, but I saw a bunch of people. And to tell you, you know, the Bronx is a very, you've got Arthur Avenue, lots of Italians, lots of Albanians. Then you've got lots of Dominicans, lots of Puerto Ricans, lots of everybody, right? Lots of African Americans. They're all over the Bronx. And in the South Bronx, you've got a lot of Hispanics, a lot of blacks. That's the general makeup. There's a Hasidic community all over the city. There was lots of Jews. There was such a big cross section of New York City at this rally. And what was interesting is there was no problems. Right? No problems. Yet, I'm looking at some of the headlines. And again, this just wrapped up a couple of hours ago, maybe 2.5, 3 hours ago. And what I find interesting is the New York Daily News, and not to be confused with the New York Post, right? The New York Post is the oldest newspaper in America, started by Alexander Hamilton, right? Hundreds of years ago. This is not that, right? The Daily News is the fledgling newspaper in New York that's been around for quite a while. It's been sold several times, kind of like WAPO, right? The Washington Post that had no readership, was losing money, and needed a billionaire to come and rescue it. Well, that's the Daily News. I think its last sale price was $1. They sold it to a nonprofit that operates it, and they're constantly in threat of closing their doors. And the headline that they lead with for again, the only Trump rally to ever happen, but let's say you think, all right, big whoop, who's Trump? When was the last time a president of the United States brought out 25,000 people to a rally in New York City? I haven't seen that on any side of the aisle. But here's the headline from the Daily News. Hundreds of Trump supporters pack Bronx rally as protesters jeer outside. I mean, there couldn't have been a more misleading headline than this. Hundreds of Trump supporters pack a Bronx rally? How do you pack a rally with hundreds of supporters? Right. This is how the media likes to play their game. They love to say, oh, they didn't have this, they didn't have that. And it doesn't stop there, right? This is how you know these things are coordinated. And hopefully I have enough time to get this thought out. But the way they organize these things, these rallies, it's a joint effort, right? The Secret Service is in charge of securing the event, the president, and what's happening there. However, they have to work with local law enforcement, the NYPD, which of course is working with the city, and they got to get a permit and all that stuff. So when they apply for the permit and whatnot, you have to say, well, how many people are you expecting, this and that, how much space do you need? And they say, this is what we need. And the city can turn back to you and say, oh, no, we can't do that. We can't provide that kind of manpower. So, for example, let's say you say, look, we're expecting 50,000 people, but if it rains, 25,000. So we're going to need a perimeter where we shut down the whole park. They could turn to you and say, no, we don't want to shut down the whole park. We'll shut down, 200 feet around the stage, but we can't shut down the whole park and every entrance to the park. Okay, so right, you have to work with the city on this because they have to deal with the Department of Parks and everybody else. Okay, what happens when you reduce the perimeter size is that the Secret Service has a formula that they use, and based on the perimeter size is how many magnometers they allow. Those are those metal detectors that you have to go through. And for this entire crowd of, in my opinion, 20,000 people easily, they had 4 metal detectors. Now, I've seen President Trump speak at CPAC and different CPACs, right, in different places. There's always 6 or 8 magnometers to the metal detectors that you walk through with, enough Secret Service agents to facilitate that many people coming into anything, right? If you have, tens of thousands of people going in anywhere and you only have 4 doors, it's going to take a long time. Well, that's exactly what happened here. I can tell you Trump was halfway through his speech and there was still easily 10,000 people online trying to get in. Why? They still hadn't cleared security. Why? Because the city wouldn't allow enough perimeter and the Secret Service has to go by the perimeter that they give. It's really just a sad state of affairs to show you what lengths people will go to try to crap on Donald Trump. It really is. I mean, it's thankfully they were all within earshot. They could hear the speech. They just couldn't see him, but they could hear it just fine. And again, they were probably only, 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet away from the actual stage. But think of that. 10,000 people flooding the center of a park when they should have been right on stage, right alongside the stage. And of course they do that because they want to control the narrative and the situation that's at hand, so they can say, oh, Trump got a way smaller crowd than expected, so that the Daily News can go ahead and run an article like this that says hundreds of Trump supporters. Now, even if it was just hundreds of Trump supporters, even if it was just hundreds, they would have been able to, you would have seen it. But there were thousands of people around the stage. So shame on the Daily News for putting this headline out here, hundreds of Trump supporters packing Bronx rally as protesters jeer outside. If there was 20 protesters, that was a lot. Anyway, I'm going to bring in somebody to give you his objective opinion because he was there as well. John Tabacco from Newsmax TV is coming up next. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Our subways are squalid and unsafe. The ceiling tiles are falling down, and they look worse than a third world country. The medians of our highways are crumbling. Our sidewalks are littered with garbage, bottles, and trash. But worst of all, the discarded needles from people that so desperately are in need of help. And we have mobs of migrants fighting our police officers and giving America the middle finger. But we are not going to let this continue. We are not going to abandon our hope and our pride. This city has given us so much, and now it is time that we are going to give it back.
That is El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, again, in New York City at this, what is being described by Fox News as a historic rally. Massive historic rally in the Bronx. And I would say that sounds more accurate. Again, not because I'm a fan of Donald Trump's, but because when was the last time you saw a former president who's also a candidate for president doing a rally with tens of thousands of people? I hadn't seen that. And most of the people I bumped into told me they'd been there since 8 o'clock in the morning, 11 in the morning. They'd been there camping out, making sure they got in. There was plenty of people there. So the idea that they're trying to paint this as something other than it is just, it's so disingenuous. But either way, the bottom line of what I wanted to get to here is Trump made sure that yesterday's comments from AOC All Out Crazy, my least favorite congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC All Out Crazy, that she said that, oh, no, he's here because he's trying to get money, he's trying to do this, he's trying to do that, and he can't go anywhere else because they got him tied up in court. Of course, she let the cat out of the bag with that one. But the reality is, she was saying that, the people of the Bronx didn't want El Trompito to show up. Well, lo and behold, there was plenty of people there. And these were locals. It's not like they imported busloads of people from somewhere else. These were black and Hispanic people. If you look at the media coverage, as you'll start to see it, you'll see, Puerto Ricans for Trump, Latinos for Trump, Dominicans for Trump, all sorts of ethnic minorities that were out there supporting Trump. And again, that's the big story, right? The big story is that the minorities have always flocked to the Democrat Party. But that's not necessarily the case. And this is why Trump has done so well. Now, yesterday we had some really good audio on Trump's gaining popularity with ethnic minorities, on Trump closing the gap in ways they'd never seen. Right? The host on CNN, the analyst, Harry Enton, he sounded shocked. And the reason people are shocked is because that's how badly things are going for the Democrat Party and their standard bearer, Joe El Baboso Biden. Joe Biden has done such a miserable job of building the party, the Democrat Party, of using the power of incumbency. He's asleep at the wheel, doesn't know if he's coming or going. And this is the problem. And he's not willing to work with people, right? When was the last time you saw Joe Biden willing to work with Republicans? No, instead he comes out, he says, extremists, MAGA extremists, right? He always says something that's kind of derogatory. On the other hand, you've got Trump that's always willing, even today. He mentioned he was willing to work with the officials in the city of New York. We have a clip of that. Listen to this.
It doesn't matter whether they're Democrats or Republicans, because this is about our city and our country, and it's really about the people. And in this case, the people of New York City, New York State. We're going to make you very, very happy. And Biden can't do it. He doesn't know he's alive.
He doesn't know he's alive. And to me, that's the beauty of it, right? Trump gets up there and it's half stand-up show and it's half addressing the issues head on. And that's really it. And he took his time to make sure it was clear that he makes this juxtaposition between him and Joe Biden. Because it's important that the listeners really understand what's going on. Check this out.
The simple fact is Joe Biden is not getting the job done for the Bronx. He's not getting the job done for New York. And he's not getting the job done for America. He is incompetent, ladies and gentlemen. He is grossly incompetent. I will get the job done as I did for 4 years, and I will get it done fast. And remember this, if a New Yorker can't save this country, no one can. No one can.
That is El Trompito, and I think he said it right. And it's not because he's a New Yorker, but the reality is the fact that you have a New Yorker that's running for president that's actually getting cheered by people that didn't like him in the last election, people that likely voted against him, right? And that's, I guess, what I want to stress is that I was probably the odd man out here, right? Okay, sure, I'm a brown guy, I'm Puerto Rican and all that, no problem. But the reality is, as long as I've been able to vote, I've voted for the candidates that were conservative, and historically they have been Republican, right? I've never lived in Virginia where you have very conservative Democrats. I've only lived in New York and in New Jersey. So the reality is, that's my reality. I'm a guy that has voted for Trump twice. Most of the people there had not. Most of the people there were anti-Trump at one point. And that's part of the phenomena of what I think MAGA is. It's really surprising to me. As you were walking into this, right, you had to get online for the whatever, and there was a media line. I got on that line, and there was the, everybody else line. And I was listening to them because they were parallel to each other. And I could hear so many conversations. And as you were going in, there were sections of people, and there was a young man, looked Hispanic to me, probably Dominican, and he was arguing with another guy. And he asked the guy, "Where are you from?" And the guy said, "Look, my parents are Dominican, but I'm American." And they were getting into this back and forth. And he was saying, "Look, just because you don't like Trump doesn't mean that what he's saying is wrong. He's talking about securing the border. He's talking about protecting America. He's about making this country better than it is right now." And he was, challenging him, saying, "What is it that Joe Biden's done for America that has you so wrapped up in supporting Biden?" And this guy was, to me, it looked like he was minutes away from throwing a punch. That's how angry he was. And it was fascinating to see this exchange. And all I could think to myself was, I remember, I remember the 2000 election, Bush v. Gore. I remember the 2004 election. I was in New Hampshire working on that campaign, the re-election campaign for George W. Bush and against John Kerry. And all I can tell you is that I have never seen such robust debate in the streets, let alone in the South Bronx, on the issues, on the candidates, as I have since Donald Trump entered the political arena. Whether you like him or you hate him, he is a lightning rod for passion on both sides of the aisle. And I think that's a good thing for America. Folks, we continue with your calls and more straight ahead. Plus, in a little while, we're scheduled to have our guest join us. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
And these millions and millions of people that are coming into our country, the biggest impact and the biggest negative impact is against our black population and our Hispanic population, who are losing their jobs, losing their housing, losing everything they can lose.
That, of course, is Donaldus Magnus El Trompito, the 45th president of these United States, El Presidente, at the South Bronx rally just hours ago. And I think he's right. I think he's hitting the nail on the head, saying that the illegal immigration problem hits first in these communities, right? You're not competing for those jobs if you're in corporate America. You're not worried about an illegal immigrant taking your job. But if you work in fast food, if you work in so many of the labor jobs, you do have to run that risk of realizing someone might undercut you and work more hours for less money because they just came from another country. And that's just a reality of life. So I want to get some reaction from John Tabacco. You know him from Newsmax TV's Wise Guys. If you're a longtime Newsmax listener, he used to host a show called Liquid Lunch. And he's an all-around great guy. John Tabacco, welcome back.
Ricardo, thank you for having me. I feel like I just came from another country. I'm still in the car from seeing you in the Bronx, and I just arrived back in my home borough of Staten Island, New York. But what a show tonight, my friend.
Absolutely. Now, for everybody that's listening and just tuning in, John Tabacco was covering the Bronx rally, the Trump rally for Newsmax TV. And, John, give the listeners a little bit of a report on what it was like from your purview.
Well, look, I was out at the park 2 days ago to kind of scope it out and see what was happening, try to get a handle on how many people they could fit in there, actually. And from my perspective, once I got in there, Rich, I thought it was amazing how they set it up. While it was really crowded and there was great enthusiasm, at the same time, I thought there was an intimate feel to it. They had people, Trump was kind of in the round where, people are around three sides. He wasn't, up on some big stage. He was almost kind of just a bit higher than everyone else. And I felt like he was really talking to the people, like everybody could feel, and I know where you were and where I was, people could feel like, wow, I'm here and he's there. And, for me, in particular, when he talks about the border, I love when he does the snake story. And I think you had already been headed to your broadcast area, but he did the snake story and equated it to the border and said, hey, we know these people are snakes. And now we're getting bit by them. So, I think Trump is, some of it was his greatest hits today. Other stuff was he was doing an ode to the Bronx, being a Queens kid. He was talking about how, he rebuilt Woolman Rink and he rebuilt the Trump Links, the golf course, which he resurrected out there.
Yeah.
And I think he really connected himself to the community. He reminded people of, what a New Yorker he is. And, quite frankly, Rich, I know, there's a lot of rallies and a lot of political events where they try to kind of manipulate the diversity of the crowd and put certain colors and sections of people behind the candidate or whatever. To me, it was organic and it was as diverse as anything I've ever seen.
Yeah, let's talk about that, John Tabacco, because honestly, that was what struck me the most. And I was telling the audience before you came on that for me, I've been to a number of these things, and I can tell you that this one probably was the most eclectic, the most diverse because of where it was, right? Because it was mainly locals. These people were from the Bronx, right? Ruben Diaz, the senior, and his congregation. These are all Puerto Ricans and Dominicans and African Americans from the Bronx that were everywhere you went. You saw a different black or brown person with a Trump hat, a Trump shirt. And I found it remarkable because in talking to some of them, they weren't 2- and 3-time Trump voters. A lot of them, were telling me they didn't vote for Trump last time, but they see how bad things are going and they decided to jump on board. What was your experience like in talking with some of the crowd?
When I was speaking to people, and Rich, on Wise Guys, one of the things that I think Newsmax lets us do that I think is important and unique is do a lot of man on the street. So I get to talk to folks from all walks of life all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of know where to probe and ask questions. And I felt the same as you. I felt like there were a lot of people. I spoke to some younger people who said, hey, I'm willing to give him a chance. I want to hear what he has to say. And I spoke to some older African-American and Hispanic women who said, nope, not this time. I voted for Biden. I voted for Democrats my whole life. But they're coming after our kids. They're coming after our families. They're coming after our pocketbook. And we need Trump. And to your point earlier, very astutely made as usual, there were a lot of people there who this, I think, will be their first time not only voting for Trump, but voting Republican.
Right. And I found that to be remarkable. That was a real consensus outside of, volunteers and staff and stuff like that. The people that were actually there, I found it to be just, it blew me away to see how many people are getting involved in politics really for the first time because of Donald Trump. And I guess we can give some credit to Joe Biden and his lack of performance because that's what drove people, right? To say, oh my gosh, inflation's killing me. This is killing me. The border's killing me. So many things are hurting Americans from so many different angles that they've decided to get involved and actually go to the park to listen to Trump speak at a rally. John Tabacco, I want to switch gears a little bit and get to the this headline that I saw in the New York Daily News. Listen to this.
Oh, no, I was just going to say this to you. This is unbelievable. Go ahead.
Oh, you saw that, right? Hundreds of Trump supporters packed the Bronx rally as protesters jeer outside. Let's take the second part first. Did you see a ton of protesters? Because I really didn't. I saw some debate, but I didn't see a ton of protesters. What did you see?
I saw at the very end on my way for most of the day, and I was there from 2 o'clock, Rich. I wanted to make sure I was in. For most of the day, I saw beautiful, peaceful people coming in and out. Some kids were having some fun in the street, rap battling each other and stuff. But at the end, walking out, there was about 100 rabble-rousers who had some, F Trump stuff. But, when I looked at the faces of them, it's the same, it's the same Antifa folks that I see at the drag queen story hours and the transgender rallies and the Palestine rallies. Mostly, from what I could tell, it was a group of paid protesters, and they were really no match for what I would say is probably between 15 and 20,000 people that were there.
Yeah, exactly. I saw about the same thing, about 20,000 people there. And by my estimation. And what was interesting was, obviously the Daily News saying hundreds of Trump supporters. And I'm thinking, you get hundreds of people in the park on a regular day, let alone on a day where there's a big event like this. But what I found really interesting, and you give me your take on this, was that with 10,000 people probably by the stage and another 10,000 people waiting to get through the Secret Service, I found it really odd that there were only 4 Secret Service doorways with metal detectors, magnometers, where people could actually get through. And I started making my way away from the stage halfway through the speech, and there were still a good 10,000 people online. What do you think is up with that?
Well, what I think is up with that, I think there was, don't forget, the New York City Council is largely overrun by Democrats. For Trump to pull off a rally like this in a couple of weeks' time, turn around, you have to get some expedited permits and stuff like that. So I think, I know Joe Borelli, New York City Minority Council leader, did a lot to expedite those permits. But I think there was a give and take. They only gave him a permit for 3,500 people. So I think they probably limited the amount of metal detectors they were allowed to have there. So I think, the Democrats in the New York City Council and Congressman Richie Torres and other, they didn't want that aerial shot of 25,000 people surrounding the stage. So I think they made it a little more difficult. But at the end of all days, many times, when there are Trump rallies, he always says there's so many more people outside, the cameras never show you. I think you're making the point that a lot of people are going to make tomorrow that half the people couldn't even get in.
Yeah.
And I think for the first time, you're going to see how many people were waiting to get in, and I think that'll be part of the news tomorrow. But, going back to the headline, it shows you that the Daily News is really an oxymoron because there's it it's actually false journalism, if you ask me. There was, no editor that's worth his weight in salt could write any headline other than thousands, because, there were hundreds of people there at 2:00.
Right. All right, John, hang on right there. We're going to come right back to you. Folks, we're on with John Tabacco from Wise Guys on Newsmax TV discussing the Trump rally. And I want to switch gears and get a little take from you, being a former Wall Street entrepreneur, on the economy. So stick with us, folks. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our discussion on everything that's going on in America at night. And I want to ask our guest, John Tabacco from Newsmax TV's Wise Guys. You can check that out every weekend. They've got brand new episodes, and it's a really, really fun show. I've been on it a couple of times, and I always enjoy it. But John Tabacco, you made your gazillions on Wall Street, and you understand how this stuff works. A couple of months ago, Trump did an IPO for his social media company, Trump Media and Technology Group. And lately, there's been some activity with some folks trying to short the stock. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, look, I don't have gazillions yet, but I am blessed, Richard. Thank you. No, one of the things that I have been an expert in my career is short selling stocks and identifying overvalued situations. And what I found interesting was when Trump's company came public, it immediately went from $17 to $70. And then all of a sudden, within days, the stock was on its way back down to $20, and no one could understand what was happening. I said to my brother, they're shorting the heck out of this stock. I started doing some analytics and said, some of the biggest short sellers in this stock right now are Citadel. And what many people may not realize is Citadel is one of the largest trading firms in the world, and it's owned by a guy by the name of Ken Griffin. And if you remember, Ken Griffin was one of the biggest financial supporters of Ron DeSantis. And then when Ron DeSantis' campaign went down in flames, Ken Griffin turned his spigot on for Nikki Haley. And it seems like, while the Democrats are engaging in lawfare everywhere against Trump and persecuting him in the court system, now what I'm seeing in the markets is his political enemies are actually persecuting his company stock. And Devin Nunes, the CEO, he's a great investigator. If you remember, he's the guy that basically uncovered the Russia hoax and ran the whole investigation, proving that Donald Trump was spied on, Mike Flynn was set up, and Donald Trump never had any Russia ties. And Devin Nunes is one hell of an investigator. And Devin Nunes has started to figure this thing out also, and now he's running up to Capitol Hill and telling the Congress that, hey, we have people that are manipulating the stock market to hurt the shareholders in DJT, Donald Trump stock, specifically because Trump is one of their political enemies. And it's happening right now. Nunes is in a dogfight with Citadel and Ken Griffin. And, Donald Trump company has 600,000 shareholders, Rich. 600,000. That's almost unheard of for a public company that just went public. And it tells me that many of the people who bought shares in Trump stock, they're not your typical investors who are just buying to hold. These are activist investors. These people are Trump voters who want to own a piece of Trump's company. And in the long run, I say the shorts are going to lose because those people don't want their stock shorted. Devin Nunes has still some strong connections up on Capitol Hill and with some state AGs. And I think we're really going to see a battle of the titans here in the stock market, Trump versus Griffin for all the marbles. And, you know, some people have whispered that Ken Griffin wants to be Treasury Secretary. These actions that he's taking right now tell me something totally different, that he doesn't think he'll be Treasury Secretary under Trump. So he's hoping someone else is president. He's even trying to kick the crap out of Trump's stock. It's really sad because the shareholders are the ones that are ultimately being hurt by a political vendetta.
Folks, we're on with John Tabacco from Newsmax TV. He's got a show called Wise Guys. You want to check it out on the weekends. And, John, stick with me. I want to come back. I want to ask a follow-up question on this shorting of stocks of the Trump Media and Technology Group and get your final take on the 2024 election. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, let's hit the phones. We're going to go to Lansing, Michigan, WILS. Ken, you're on with Rich Valdez and our guest, John Tabacco. Ken, go right ahead.
Rich, good evening. Great show as always. Great guest as always also.
Thank you.
I heard a little bit of Trump's rally there in South Bronx tonight. I heard about 5 or 6 minute clip of it. And I'll tell you what, that guy has got more energy. Him and Ted Nugent must have come from a special kind of sauce because they don't do drugs, they don't drink alcohol, and they got the energy of a young man. So God bless them. But the way he was talking to them people, you could just tell he was so comfortable. And, you know, the Democrats in this country, Rich, have just listened to their government and believe their government. And I've got a 39-year-old son, and we were not having an argument, but a good talking tonight. And he said that, Dad, your generation trusted the government.
Huh. That's brilliant. And you know what? You're right. And so many today don't. I could tell you, I definitely don't trust the government. And it's not a good thing, but it's about vigilance. Ken, you're a patriot. Thank you for your call. WILS. Now, John Tabacco, let everybody know what time they should tune in to Newsmax TV to catch your program.
Rich, I agree with that guy wholeheartedly. Trump was in his comfort zone. He's a New Yorker. He was talking to New Yorkers, and it was amazing, the whole performance. And this Saturday at 10 p.m., you got to tune in because this week I went down to the Trump courthouse and caught up with a whole bunch of Trump supporters and a whole bunch of Trump protesters. And, you know, I don't know if you've been there or for your listeners out there who haven't, there is a full sideshow circus going on outside the courthouse every single day. And we'll bring you every angle of it this week on Wise Guys.
Wise Guys is a great show. I urge you to set your DVR if you're not available at 10 p.m. on Saturday night. Make sure you record the program and play it back. It's a great show with John Tabacco, his co-host, Cara Castronova. She's terrific. He always has legal counsel on, and it's really just a good show. John Tabacco, I appreciate you being with us tonight.
Ricardo, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much. God bless you, brother.
You bet. Right back at you. All right, folks, we're coming right back with hour number 2. And I can't wait. There's a lot more to come straight ahead about kids that are being preyed upon on video games and a whole lot more. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Thursday night edition of the program. We are live and national. I'm on the East Coast, New York area, and here it's 7 minutes after 11 right now. And our phone number, if you want to join us, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Donald Trump held a rally in South Bronx, New York City today. Lots of people from lots of places. Really, really big event. We'll maybe touch upon that and get your reactions. If you were there, feel free to call in the next hour. There's also a couple of headlines here, right? You've got a hurricane that's supposed to be hitting Florida. Oh, that stinks. I love me some Florida as we're about to head into Memorial Day weekend. And there's also some headlines on the national level. The Biden campaign doesn't seem to be doing very, very good, but that's not anything new. A lot of times campaigns tend to wind down a little bit in the summer months, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt, see if he comes back. But I don't think he will, and I hope he doesn't. And then there's the RFK Jr. He's been campaigning on gay rights and celebrating Harvey Milk. There's a big famous movie about Harvey Milk. And now they're saying he was accused of grooming minors. We'll get into that in the next hour as well. Let me see what else we got here. There's some estimating that the violence fueled by left-wing groups in the summer of 2020 might rear its ugly head yet again. Some people think the summer of love is coming back. I don't know if it will. I hope it doesn't, but we'll get into that as well in the next hour. But right now, I want to talk about keeping kids safe. Keeping kids safe, especially while they're online. Lots of kids like to play with tablets. They like to be online. A lot of parents, if they're out, they'll give a kid a phone. Anything to keep the kid kind of occupied so they can enjoy a meal or whatever it is that they have to do. And while I understand that, people have been doing that since the days of pacifiers, and the new pacifier is a tablet. But with that comes games and apps and all sorts of things. And one of the things that we have that's very popular is called Roblox. And lamentably, there are predators that try to find kids on Roblox. And I remember a couple of months ago, there was a teenage girl on, I'm not sure if it was Roblox or another game, but she was lured by someone that said they were also a teenager. And the next thing you know, she met up with them in a car. And it wasn't a teenager. It was some creepy old guy. And he kidnapped her. Thankfully, the police found the car and got the girl back. But that's how serious this stuff can get. And that girl, I think she lived close to where I live. She lived in Wayne, New Jersey. And I'm in Bergen County, so you're talking 20 minutes away from, where I sleep. And that's crazy. So I want to get into this a little bit. But first, I want you to hear this report from WECT.
If you have young kids, chances are you've heard of the online video game Roblox. It gives kids a chance to create their own world. But cybersecurity experts say kids aren't the only ones playing.
There could be someone on that platform posing as a child or trying to take advantage of a child.
Caitlin Clark says that very scenario happened to her 8-year-old daughter. She says a child predator convinced her to give them her phone number, and then the conversation took an even more disturbing turn.
He kept asking her for hot videos, and I mean, she would send just like an innocent picture of herself or like an innocent video, but you could tell like he kept still wanting more, that wasn't what he was looking for.
Experts say it comes down to this. You need to be aware of what your child is doing at all times, including putting privacy settings on their phones and tablets and disabling any chat features on these games. Clark says she was already doing most of that beforehand, but she's being extra cautious from here on out.
I'm still trying to go through all of her electronics before she can have anything back.
This is a growing problem, and one that I want to get to the bottom of, because it's something, honestly, I didn't know. My youngest daughter is 18 years old, and thankfully I don't have to worry about this. She kind of plays games you can't play with other people. She loves playing, like Sudoku and things like that. But the reality is there's a lot of parents that are facing this, and I want to learn more about it. So I want to welcome our next guest, because she understands this better than most. She's the Chief Development Officer at Gamesafe, Dr. Lisa Strohman. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Rich. Happy to be here.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Again, this is something I didn't know was a problem, and now that I know, I want to know all about it, because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people out there that thought that this was just a harmless, innocuous thing that, hey, play with this, do that, do whatever, knock your socks off, and not realizing that there's an actual danger that goes with this. Tell us more.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think about technology has amassed so many people jumping on because it's fun and there's exciting things on it. And a lot of the parents nowadays really don't have the skill set or the understanding of what that means when you hand a kid a tablet. I mean, you mentioned it earlier. It's a nice way to go out to dinner and have a piece, 5 minutes, 10 minutes to yourselves. But what happens is when you give that child that tablet, they can jump into a game and they can play with anybody around the globe. And in this instance, Roblox is one of those platforms that houses thousands of games that children can jump into, and not all of them are created equally. And so you've got some that have children on them and you've got adults on them. And so unfortunately, you're basically sending your kids out into these basically virtual playgrounds without verifying who's there. And there's been very little protection in place for that.
So, Dr. Lisa Strohman, tell us how this works out, right? Because is it all predators that are looking to kidnap little kids, or is it also like bullying in the cyber world? What does some of these problems look like, and what are the ages parents should be looking out for?
Well, I would say, Roblox is essentially like an open world, right, where children can go out into and explore, and when they're on Roblox, there's all of these different experiences they can do. So if you think about it, more than half of Roblox users are under the age of 16. I think statistically 25% are under the age of 9. And then when you look at the statistics that Roblox puts out, it says that 55% of children between ages 9 and 12 are on Roblox each week. So you've got a lot of really young kids on there, but you also have adults. And I think, I've been a clinical psychologist for over 2 decades, and I've been in the space of the psychology of technology for a long time. I was really happy to join Gamesafe because of what they were doing to keep kids safe. But it's every single platform out there. Roblox is trying to be a good steward in the space, but they're also trying to earn money. And so Roblox is basically selling to all of our society. They want kids on board because it's fun and it's gamey, and then they want adults on. In fact, last year, the CEO announced that they're going to create Roblox dating, and they're going to create all of these adult experiences. And what's happened is that now you've got all these games on there where there's digital sex parties and players that are soliciting nudes and doing these things because they're more adult people on the platform. And so it's just a bad mix of adults and children. And there's a lot of darkness online.
Now, Dr. Lisa Strohman, I realize that you mentioned you're a clinical psychologist and a lawyer, and have been doing this for, more than 20 years. You were also a visiting scholar in the FBI's profiling unit in the child abduction and serial killer unit, which is, more than I can even say. But I mean, I don't know many people that have the qualifications you do, so I'm learning a lot from you. And I feel like there's probably not a lot of people like you in the country, right, that are both a clinical psychologist and a lawyer that worked with the feds in this area. This, to me, is something that we need to sound the alarm on, and I think most parents are clueless to this.
I would agree. Yeah. I mean, it's been a frustrating journey. I mean, I've probably spent the last 15 years trying to sound the alarms. And I think that, the societal impression was kind of not my kid, not my not my problem. And the founder of Gamesafe, David Everett, who's an incredible human and has the tech brain that I do not. I have the psychology. I understand the psychology of technology, but he understands actually the IT aspects of it. And he honestly had a child that was online playing. And as she was playing online, came to him because he had talked to her about it and said, "Hey, Daddy, I think that something's happening here." And he went on and he was like, "Oh my gosh," and tried to, reach out to them, and nothing was in place. And by, the grace of his brain and what his gifts are in this world, he was able to create technology to go out and protect us, and to be able to image what our kids are seeing on their devices. And so I've been lockstep with him since I found out what he could do, to try to help our parents understand, see what's happening in these rooms. I mean, I don't know, Rich, there's things called condo rooms, which are like essentially known to be like rooms where sex acts occur. They call them boom boom rooms sometimes.
This is all on Roblox?
This is all on Roblox. Yeah. Yeah.
I can't imagine why any parent would allow their kid to play in a place where there's sex dungeons. Right.
Well, so because parents don't see that. Right. So if you go on Roblox and you look at kind of the main page of Roblox, it's like, oh, did you want to go in and like go to a zoo and meet your friends at a zoo? And it looks all up and up, but it takes very, very little to know that there's all these other things and get invited by other people. So the people that know, and one of the probably the most lurid areas I would say is the XYZ experience. If you type that into Roblox, you will find all of these rooms like public swimming pools or the bathrooms. And all of these have these rooms that you can get lured in, you can get locked inside, you can be attacked by strangers, you can be ganged up on. So it's really terrifying, and little kids really don't know what to do with that. But parents don't see that because they're not getting pulled into these kind of dark recesses on Roblox with their children in tow. The kids are doing it on their own. They get scared. They don't want to say anything. And then parents have no idea.
Wow. Folks, we're on with Dr. Lisa Strohman. She is a clinical psychologist and a lawyer, has experience working with the FBI, and is working hard to keep our children safe with Gamesafe. And we're going to continue this discussion on Roblox and how to keep your kids safe from Roblox and all the dangers that I'm learning it can present. Doc, hang on. We're coming right back. Folks, don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Welcome back, America. Listen, amigos, we're having this conversation, and I think it's really important. We need to know what's going on with our children's safety when they're online playing games like Roblox. And who knew that kids could access these, I'm going to call them, for lack of a better word, sex dungeons. Well, that's why Dr. Lisa Strohman is here. She is a lawyer and a clinical psychologist. Dr. Lisa Strohman, when we look at what's going on here, whether it's, all these different things that we see kids go through, suicide, self-harm, eating disorders, there's so much to worry about. Cyberbullying, the last thing in the world people, at least I would have thought parents had to worry about, was to protect their kids from games like Roblox, but yet here we are.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I think, I don't think that the developers in the beginning, when they're creating some of these things and creating these platforms, had that in mind, that, the good and the evil would come together in these situations. Right. And so I think that it's really important. I think that parenting has, ultimately shifted. I think that, I truly believe children deserve to be free and that they could play and that they should be able to do that in safe ways with some trust of our society. And I think that what we've failed them in is understanding how and what we need to do online in these online worlds, because I think that there's no safeguards in place like they are in the real world. So, a predator might get arrested for being assaulting a child, and that person has to register on an offender list, and then we would know where they live, and they can't live near a school, and there's all these safeguards in place, but we don't have any of that online. And I think that it's just now becoming, I think, apparent to society that we need to start putting more protections in place for that.
What do you caution parents to do right now, those that are listening, and if they're grandparents listening that are about to call their kids and say, hey, did you know about this? Right. What should they do? What steps should they take? What website do they visit? How do they protect themselves?
Well, I would say, generally, kind of the psychologist in me is, you've got to teach the kids how to help themselves, and you have to stop protecting them. We need to teach them how to block strangers. We need to, as parents, understand what privacy settings are. I know you said your youngest is 18, but even at 18, who are they meeting online if they're going online? If something inappropriate comes, teach them how to report that. The reason I joined Gamesafe specifically was because they actually created a technology that is jumping ahead of the industry. And I think, David, the founder of our company, really was like, hey, we can create technology that protects our kiddos. And so what Gamesafe is able to do is take screenshots on any device that your child's on. It processes those captured images, and it runs it across a threat model. So if there's vulgar language, if there's racial slurs, if there's nudes, if there's inappropriate behavior, if there's grooming or predatory behavior that it's catching, that immediately gets extracted and sent to a parent's device, and the parent is able to take action on it immediately. So he's no longer, he's created an ability for parents to no longer wait for the reporting mechanism, right? Normally you'd say, this just happened to my kid, Roblox, can you help me? And Roblox has, 30 million users on it on a daily basis, or 300 million, whatever it is. They're not able to come in and help our kids. So he just jumped ahead of it and gave parents the tool to be able to understand what's happening in real time, which is an incredible shift and what we need for, I think, not just Roblox, but other companies too.
Outstanding. Now, if people want to learn more about the work that you do with Gamesafe, or they want to get Gamesafe for themselves or for their family members, how do they do it?
Yeah, if they want to go to gamesafe.ai, that's the site. I think that we have a 30-day free offering for anyone from your show that he set up for everyone. So I think that, again, everybody in this field, particularly at Gamesafe, is heart forward, and our goal is we're all parents, and so we want to help save the kids, and so we're trying to get it out there and help parents as much as we can.
Dr. Lisa Strohman, I enjoyed the conversation. You are a gentlewoman, a scholar, and a patriot. Hopefully we'll have more conversations soon. Thank you. All right, folks, more to come straight ahead. We continue with your calls and additional conversation on the tyranny of gender roles. Don't go anywhere.
Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
For the ladies present today, congratulations on an amazing accomplishment. You should be proud of all that you have achieved to this point in your young lives. I want to speak directly to you briefly because I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. How many of you are sitting here now, about to cross this stage, and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you are going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world. I can tell you that my beautiful wife, Isabel, would be the first to say that her life truly started when she began living her vocation as a wife and as a mother. I'm on this stage today and able to be the man I am because I have a wife who leans into her vocation. I'm beyond blessed with the many talents God has given me, but it cannot be overstated that all of my success is made possible because a girl I met in band class back in middle school would convert to the faith, become my wife, and embrace one of the most important titles of all, homemaker.
That right there was the most controversial thing that anybody had ever heard, and the NFL quickly moved to say we are not in lockstep with Harrison Butker. We don't represent any of those values. He's on his own. He's gone rogue. He's speaking about his Catholic faith at a church or at a commencement ceremony for Benedictine college, and it just. The whole thing is crazy, but it goes to show you that if you talk about a traditional, what the left would call gender role, well, guess what? We've got a problem here, Houston. So I want to get into this with the author of The Language of Betterarchy, a blueprint for uniting against tyranny, Dani Katz. Welcome.
Hi, Rich. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So what's your reaction to how the NFL and the media have been treating Harrison Butker for saying things that he felt were true?
I think they're falling in lockstep with the entire propaganda agenda that this speech represents. The whole thing was incendiary and polarizing and really disrespectful to the students who were graduating. So I think, to pick apart the part about the women is like, that was the point. It was dropped into that speech to rile up the division between these alleged sides and create more chaos among the American people so that we're too distracted to pay attention to those in charge who are trying to destroy our country.
And you've written on this topic in your book, The Language of Betterarchy, a blueprint for uniting against tyranny. Tell us about the book.
So the book is divided into three parts. Initially, the first part dismantles the myth of patriarchy, and this myth that says that patriarchy is the reason for everything terrible that's ever happened on the planet, and that the so-called solution is to put women in positions of power, or black people in positions of power, or gay people in positions of power, while kicking men to the curb. In my estimation, if we're operating within a system that needs there to be losers for there to be winners, that needs there to be marginalized classes for there to be elite classes, then that's a pretty dumb system that it's high time we evolve out of. The second part of the book explains how language programs every single aspect of our reality construct. And then the third part of the book breaks down the markers of hierarchical languaging so that we can see where we ourselves are responsible for sustaining this outdated system by using its language, while at the same time it offers very simple language shifts and upgrades that allow us to pull our consent out of this system and to come together to create something better.
And for any listeners that are listening and want to get a copy of the book, where should they go?
The book is on sale on Amazon, in print, in ebook, in audiobook. For those who don't feel aligned with shopping on Amazon, feel free to email me through my site, danikatz.com, and I'm happy to arrange for a private sale.
All right. Again, the website is danikatz.com. You want to spell that out for everybody?
It's DANIKATZ.com. And it's also where you can find out about my webinars, my courses, working with me, all the fun things.
Outstanding. Well, Dani Katz, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. Keep up the good work. And, what's interesting with Harrison Butker, from my opinion, is that he was able to really captivate such a cross-section of the country. And even though he was ostracized by the media, I think there was a little bit of a backlash there. So when we come back, I'm going to share with you a little bit of what happened after all this happened. And I think you'll agree with me that it backfired. Folks, don't go anywhere. Coming back with your phone calls and more. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Our own nation is led by a man who publicly and proudly proclaims his Catholic faith, but at the same time is delusional enough to make the sign of the cross during a pro-abortion rally. He has been so vocal in his support for the murder of innocent babies that I'm sure to many people, it appears that you can be both Catholic and pro-choice. He is not alone. From the man behind the COVID lockdowns to the people pushing dangerous gender ideologies onto the youth of America, they all have a glaring thing in common. They are Catholic. This is an important reminder that being Catholic alone doesn't cut it. These are the sorts of things we are told in polite society to not bring up. You know, the difficult and unpleasant things. But if we are going to be men and women for this time in history, we need to stop pretending that the Church of Nice is a winning proposition. We must always speak and act in charity, but never mistake charity for cowardice.
So that, again, is Harrison Butker. He's the NFL player, kicker, that got into a bunch of heat because he went to a graduation and spoke at the graduation and said things that are true in his life about his faith, right? His freedom of religion got him in all sorts of trouble. But people thought this would be a bad thing. Well, it turns out he blew it up. Where'd he blow it up? He blew it up at the NFL shop. Even though the commencement speech that he delivered earlier this month got all this backlash, his merch is flying out the door. The NFL shop has his jersey and T-shirt, and they've ranked amongst the most popular. This is on KTLA.com. The most popular Kansas City Chiefs gear ever. He's killing the game. His men's and women's sweatshirts are listed under the same tag as most popular. Butker's jersey is also the third in the best-selling men's jerseys catalog in the entire league. The 28-year-old is widely known for his conservative Catholic beliefs and thoroughly expressed those during a now famous speech, yada, yada. I think we know all about that. But I thought the part about the jersey being number one seller is fantastic and number 3 for the whole league. That's a big deal because I'd never even heard of this guy, right? I'm not a big football guy. I'm not familiar with him. But I think he did a terrific job in his speech, and good for him. And, of course, the folks at the NFL were, in a little bit of an uproar because this is worrisome to them. This concerns them. And to me, it opens the door for a larger conversation about censorship and how we've gone so far away from what once was, right? Just think about the founding of this country. We had guys that were reading the literature of very wise men, informed through the Enlightenment. Very wise men. Alexis de Tocqueville, Montesquieu, John Locke, just so many people that informed the founding of this country in a point where you could have debate in a very civil and very open manner, where it was almost encouraged, right? That the civil discourse, civil public discourse, is a big part of our tradition in this country. And A part of our tradition also is the duel, Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr, and I get that. But those are the exceptions to the rule, right? For the most part, it's collegiality, right? You've got Democrats and Republicans that can't stand each other in Washington, yet they're still following the Senate rules of decorum and the House rules of decorum, and they refer to each other as my colleague or the gentleman from whichever state, right? Because that's what we do. We have the discussion and we have the disagreement and we have it in a very civil manner. But it seems like the exact opposite is what's encouraged today. Today, it's almost like, oh, no, you're not even allowed to say that. How dare you make me think for myself to formulate an opinion? I shared a video. This was a couple of weeks ago, or 8 or 9 days, something like that. When that news that AstraZeneca was in a lawsuit and they pulled their vaccine from the market. And there was a clip of a news report of people complaining about the AstraZeneca vaccine, and then back in 2020, and then a fast forward to 2024, where they were saying AstraZeneca has now withdrawn their vaccine from the market. All it was 2 news reports with no editorializing pasted next to each other. So if you watched it, you would see the difference between the 2 reports. The first one saying people are complaining that there's blood clots, and AstraZeneca says you don't know what you're talking about, right? And then the second one saying AstraZeneca today pulling their vaccine from the market. That's it. That's all it is. And Instagram flagged, and I shared this to my Instagram story. It wasn't like I posted it as a post from my account. I just shared it. And they said that, they've attached a warning label to my account and they're calling it lacking context. What context? It was 2 videos. That's all it was. I didn't add anything. So I understand they're saying that everybody else needs context so that they can figure this out. I didn't have any context. I saw the one video. I saw the other one. Great. I thought it was good. It was an interesting juxtaposition. I shared it. It goes to show you that they are hard at work making sure they prevent you from sharing ideas that they disagree with. I have never stopped any liberal, Democrat, communist, you name it, from sharing their ideas. I tend to believe in Jesus as my Lord, my Savior, right? I am a Christian. Other people have different religious beliefs. That's okay. I don't go and flag their posts if they talk about another God and say, it's false advertising. I don't do that. But yet they'll do it to you. And I just find it remarkable, just like they're doing it to Harrison Butker. Another interesting thing, we had Adam Carolla on the show a few days ago, right? And I shared, hey, check out the video. If you didn't see my interview with Adam Carolla, check it out on the podcast, or you could see the video of it on YouTube. And by the way, that is on YouTube if you want to check it out. And guess what? That was immediately removed by Facebook, and it said we've removed your content because you were soliciting views. Yes, I was soliciting. I said if you missed it, check it out on YouTube. They're going to hide behind the idea that no, we're doing that because we believe that you were doing something wrong that violated our community guidelines. But the reality is they're always going to have a ruse, a reason to say why they're censoring you. The bottom line is that they're censoring you. They don't like what you have to say. They don't want people to laugh at your content. They don't want people to see your video. They don't want people to hear your commencement speech. Because they're afraid you might sway someone's opinion. They're afraid someone might believe you. That's funny. I'm not afraid when Joel Barroso Biden opens his mouth every day. I'm not afraid when I hear AOC all out crazy, my least favorite congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, when she comes out and says whatever locuras she says. I don't care what she says. She says it. I refute it. I debate it. I take it apart. I invite her on the show. She dodges me, and that's how we move. It always astonishes me how people who disagree with you are just so afraid of what you have to say. I don't know. Maybe call me crazy, but I believe in having a robust conversation. Anyway, folks, we continue with your calls and more straight ahead. And then in the next hour, it's Open Phone America, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
What do you think about a big Donald Trump rally in the Bronx?
I mean, I think, as you mentioned earlier, this guy is stuck in court. And let's be very clear about the fact that he is stuck in court because over hush money payments for in order to quiet the story about him having sex with Stormy Daniels in the lead up to the in the lead up to the election. And I think that because he is stuck on so many charges around fraud and these payments, he is stuck in a pretty tight radius of where he can go. New York City's blue, Brooklyn is blue, Queens is blue, the Bronx is blue, and he's got nowhere to go. And so he's decided to come to the South Bronx. He's broke. He needs to pay these legal funds and, busing people in order to get those donations so that he can funnel them to his legal fees is kind of his business right now.
Okay, there you go. That is a rather long commentary, more than I would have liked to play, of my least favorite congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, all out crazy herself. And AOC all out crazy, she's got her, I don't know if I could say this on the radio, I think she's got her panties in a bunch. And because, or in Spanish we'd say, tiene el moño virado, right? She's got her ponytail in a twist. And the reason why is because she feels that she's got the South Bronx on lock. She thinks this is her part of town, even though she grew up closer to WFAS country in Westchester. But she wants to hate on El Trompito, Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, saying that he's only there as part of the grift. But AOC, what makes you think that the people that you say don't want him are going to give him money in the South Bronx? I mean, let's get it straight here. He was at Crotona Park in the South Bronx. It wasn't like there was a bunch of, you said Brooklyn's blue, New York City is blue, right? The Bronx is blue. If all of these areas are blue, then what do you care? And why did he pull out such a big crowd? That's my question. So AOC, I don't know. I think you got this one wrong. Anyway, folks, Open Phone America is coming up. We're going to talk about everything we've discussed tonight, from keeping your kids safe online to the big rally in the Bronx today from Donald Trump, as well as why it's wrong to go after people for their faith when they're just speaking at a graduation ceremony, and a lot more that we're going to get to. So keep it locked right here. Hour 3 is coming up. It's Open Phone America with me, Rich Valdez.
From the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to hour number 3 of our program. It's the Thursday night edition. We're live, we're national. Happy to be here. Our phone number, 833-482-5337-833-4-Valdez. Looking forward to speaking with you all on your thoughts on the Trump rally, your thoughts on all of the news of the day. There's lots that went on today. And one of the things that we were just talking about was the comments that were made by the NFL kicker Harrison Butker and how censorship is on the rise. People who don't like what you say will try to silence you rather than debate you or argue or just even ignore you and just tell their version of the story, right? The competition, the marketplace of ideas seems to be shriveling up. It's drying up because people don't even want to compete for your attention anymore. They don't want to try and sway you one way or the other. They're just trying to silence the people they don't believe are right, and they just go ahead and run with that. And I think that's not a good look. But we'll get into that in a moment. I want to talk about a few things tonight. Of course, your calls are welcome, and we'll get to you momentarily. But Merrick Garland, the Attorney General of the United States, he's been making the rounds, saying things that I think are silly. But we had Kash Patel on the program earlier. Kash Patel's a former federal prosecutor. He's a former national security advisor to the Senate Intelligence Committee. He was a public defender, and he was also the chief of staff at the Pentagon. He knows a thing or two about a thing or two. And Kash Patel says that this notion that they didn't take out language about using deadly force on the raid on Mar-a-Lago was careless and somewhat of a normal thing to do, but should not have happened because this was not a normal raid, not a normal execution of a search warrant. And we talked about that when he called in, I think on Monday night or Tuesday night. But Merrick Garland continues to make the rounds talking about these things. And I think it's important that we discuss it a little bit, right? He had a press conference today, Merrick Garland, and he says that deadly force was not authorized. Listen to this.
Most of us got a solicitation email this morning from the former President of the United States saying that the Justice Department had authorization to kill him during the Mar-a-Lago raid. First, can you give us some clarification on that particular point that he's making and whether or not deadly force is authorized in other interventions, including the search of Mr. Biden's residence and office? And the second question is...
Can I do one at a time? Okay. On that one, that allegation is false, and it is extremely dangerous. The document that is being referred to in the allegation is the Justice Department standard policy limiting the use of force. As the FBI advises, it is part of the standard operations plan for searches, and in fact, it was even used in the consensual search of President Biden's home.
Now, that's Merrick Garland. If I had to put this on a meter, I would say liar, liar, pants on fire. I don't believe, and I believe it's true that those rules are part of the standard operating plan. I believe that. What I don't believe is that it was overlooked or somehow left in the plan when you're approaching a house that is protected by the Secret Service where the former president of the United States lives. And again, it's not because the former president or current president is, quote unquote, above the law, but it's because there is procedure, courtesy, all sorts of things, right? When you're dealing with something that's one-off. And this is one-off if you've ever seen one, right? When else in history have we had moments like these where a former president who's running for president again is having his home searched by the FBI when they could have clearly gone through his lawyers, and that was established at the time, and it was refuted. No, because he wouldn't give back the documents, and he wouldn't do this, and he wouldn't do that. Well, it turns out they've given back a bunch of those documents, haven't they? And the passports they stole from him, and some of his wife's items that they took. The whole thing was crazy, honestly was. So when Merrick Garland says that this was a standard operating plan, I'm sure that's true. The problem is it should not have been a standard operating plan because this is not a standard raid, right? How many guys that are in federal law enforcement can say, oh, yeah, no, today, we're doing Clinton's house, and tomorrow we're going to do a raid on Jimmy Carter's house, and then maybe next Tuesday we're going to go to George W. Bush. And, how many former presidents are they conducting these raids, these SWAT team-styled raids to collect documents? It's not happening. So clearly there's nothing standard about this operating plan. It was not standard. And I think that's a huge part of the issue. Now, Garland wants to paint this as, well, the big deal here is that, this is very reckless. No, I don't think it's. Listen, I understand Trump is being hyperbolic, and I agree. That's probably, I don't think for a second that they were trying to go there to kill Donald Trump. They're not stupid, and they knew he wasn't there. They literally waited till he wasn't there so they could go and put on this whole charade. Right? Move his boxes around, stack them in his bathroom, put them on the stage, move them around, add all those cover documents that say classified to make it look like, oh, my God, look at all these, splitting up documents that had 10 pages in it and splitting them up so they could put a classified document on top of each one. What they did was crazy. And they knew that they weren't going to pull that off with the president there. It was much easier to do if he wasn't there. So they waited till he wasn't there. I believe that 100%. Do I believe they went there to kill him? No. Do I believe that maybe they wanted to send a little message and say, hey, by the way, we left that whole thing in, that whole, that whole we can kill you thing on there. And guess what? When you play the telephone game, people start to hear that, and then it becomes, did you know that Joe Biden authorized a search warrant on Trump's Mar-a-Lago home with the instructions to shoot on sight? And that's how they start bending the truth, right? The gossip mongers and the people playing the telephone game. Now, I'm not saying I don't think they wish he was out of the picture. I'm just saying they didn't go there to take him out of the picture. They went there to take him out of the election, not to take him out permanently. Anyway, that's my thought on that with Merrick Garland. I think he's full of crap. He's a fake. He's a phony. He's a fraud. And I want to get your thoughts on that and more. We're also going to discuss everything else that we've talked about today. We got Harrison Butker. I want to get your thoughts on that. I also want to get your thought on let me see. What else did we talk about? Oh, Roblox and keeping kids safe online. A lot of that stuff I'd never, ever heard of before. So I want your thoughts on that. And, of course, the big Trump rally in the Bronx. Your calls and more are coming up right after this.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Voted best head of hair in live late night radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
We had 4 of the greatest years in the history of our country. We rebuilt the military, we cut taxes, the biggest tax cut in history, the biggest regulation cut in history. We defeated ISIS. We defeated ISIS, and we did it in about 1/100th the time. They said it would take 4 to 5 years. It took me like 2 months, right? Because we have an incredible military, and we're not allowed to show. They had Afghanistan, the worst pullout, the most embarrassing day in the history of our country. It's probably the reason, a piece of it, why Russia went into Ukraine. They said, these people are incompetent, we'll go in. So Russia going into Ukraine would have never happened. None of this stuff that you see would have happened. Israel would have never happened, the attack on October 7th. And you wouldn't have had inflation. As soon as I get back into the Oval Office, I am going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call your mayor and your governor, and I'm going to say, this is President Trump, and I want to come back and help.
That's El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, El Presidente, at a rally in the South Bronx today. I was there. It was quite the occasion. As far as I know, it's the only rally he's done in the boroughs. Somebody asked me if there was a 2019 Staten Island rally. I don't remember that one. If you guys want to fact check me, you can. But I think this is it, and I can't imagine him doing another rally for re-election because he won't be running for re-election, after this. So, anyway, I want to get your thoughts on this, on Harrison Butker, and everything else we've been talking about. Let us go to Vero Beach, Florida, WTTB. Rick, Vero Beach, go right ahead.
So on Harrison Butker, that was not his first commencement speech. If you go back about a year, you'll find that he spoke at the Georgia Institute of Technology, where he had been a student athlete, and he gave a similarly flavored, to some degree, commencement speech there. But I don't believe you heard any of the big ruckus from that. Right. Perhaps it was the venue of the latest commencement speech that gave people a target.
Could be that it's an election year. People love to be, what's the popular term now? Butthurt. People like to be butthurt over things that normally they would have, again, they were tolerant of in years past. It just all of a sudden now it's like, oh my gosh, no, you didn't say that. Oh, we're going to have to censor you. And there's just a lack of tolerance all around, I think. Rick in Vero Beach, Florida, I think that's a really good point. Thank you for your call. Big shout out to WTTB. I also want to give a shout out to one of our listeners in Connecticut who was at the Trump rally. Even though I had my disguise on, I had my aviator shades. I was wearing my Joe Biden outfit. And he came over to me and he said, hey, are you Rich Valdez? And I didn't know if he was like, somebody I'd had a debate with on the radio and he was going to try and swing at me or not. But he said, I love your show. He listens on the Fox News affiliate, 94.9 let me make sure I get this one right, WJJF out of New York, New London, Connecticut, and Montauk. And good meeting him. Nice guys. Originally from Queens, New York. His name is Chris, and it was good meeting you, Chris. If you're listening, big shout out to you and, of course, to WJJF. And I want to continue with your phone calls. Let me see. Where do we go? Who's been holding on? Let me see. Let's go. By the way, we've got calls from South Dakota, from New Jersey, from Idaho, from Montana, and from Pennsylvania. All we need is a little Oregon, California, and New York to round out the entire country. Now, let's see who's been on hold the longest. I'm going to go with, let's see, it looks like it's Lance, Galloway, New Jersey, WOND. Lance, go right ahead.
Hey, gracious good evening, Rich. And it was very nice to notice the other night you got on the 100 list for the Talkers magazine.
Oh, thank you very much.
And I'm going to say that I hope you take that as one of your early Father's Day presents. There you go.
Okay. Amen to that, brother. I'll take it. It really is a thrill.
Right.
I remember starting out in this business and seeing that, and I said, as a local host, I'm never going to get on a list like that because it's always the syndicated shows that get on that. And I never really had much of an aspiration to be a syndicated host. If you asked me 5 years ago, 4 years ago, what do you want to do? I'd say I'd want to be an 85-year-old man talking on a microphone here in New York City on a local station. And what a blessing it's been to get a syndicated show. So I take it all back. I love it. Anyway, Lance, go right ahead.
Well, put it this way: you weren't on the naughty list yet. Anyway,
I'll take it.
In regards to Merrick Garland, if I heard him say it right, that it was like standard operating procedure, and that's the way it is on all the forums when they do that. Well, then let them come up and present the exact same form that they did when they moved in to go look at Joe Biden's thing. But you got to remember one thing: Merrick Garland, Harvard-educated undergraduate, and then his Juris Doctorate from Harvard too. He's coming out of the same mold as Obama. It was Obama's representative or a candidate nominee to be on the Supreme Court, and he didn't make it. And he's a bitter person. And the only thing that all these people have in common, one of the true things that they all seem to do, they don't take no for an answer. They don't care what you say because they only want to care about putting you down and and separating good versus evil. And it's truly a shame that, unfortunately, and here's the other thing. If you notice that on the true report that the Senate investigators went through, that the people went in with shirts that didn't signify that they were FBI or anything like that. So that, in a way, is a way to, if you're going into some place, you think that's undercover. And how do you know? They already have Secret Service for Donald Trump. Wouldn't that accelerate their senses and they go out and possibly shoot back or even, withdraw their weapons? So, again, it's dirty pool. It's a dirty thing, and I love Donald Trump being in the Bronx. And I'll tell you what, I didn't hear one Bronx cheer. Did you?
Yeah, it was great. There was so many people there. At one point, they started. He starts talking about. He says, who really gets the short end of the stick when you've got immigration? It's blacks and Hispanics. And he goes on talking about immigration. And all of a sudden, the crowd erupts into "Build the wall, build the wall." And I mean, when you see the people chanting this. This wasn't a bunch of white biker dudes, right? These were, guys from the Bronx, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, African Americans. That was predominantly the crowd that was there. And there was, a bunch of Jews there. There was a lot of Jews in New York City. There was also, of course, white people interspersed from everywhere. There's, lots of Italians and Albanians, European descent in the Bronx. But yeah, just really interesting to see who was really moved by a lot of what he said. And I saw so much of it. I've got some videos, candid videos, not like interviews or anything, but I'll post those on my social media at Rich Valdez with an S. Lance, thank you for the call. Big shout out to WOND. I might be in your part of town. Let's see, come maybe not this weekend, the following weekend. This weekend, probably doing some Jersey Shore, so maybe in your neck of the woods as well, but definitely closer to Atlantic City the following weekend. Lance, thanks for the call. Big shout out to everybody listening on WOND. And when we come back, I want to talk about the Dream Team. No, not the OJ Dream Team. My own version of the Dream Team. I'll fill you in when we come back. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Call now 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back, America. We continue our conversation. Open phone, America, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And I want to get to your calls, but I mentioned the Dream Team, and I'm not talking about Michael Jordan back winning the Olympics. I'm not talking about Bob Shapiro and Johnny Cochran and Alan Dershowitz, the Dream Team in the OJ trial. I'm talking about the Dream Team I've made up in my head. and that is imagine a Trump administration, what that would look like if you could pick anybody you want. And I'm thinking, all right, so if we get Donaldus Magnus to be president, he's in the White House, who do we pick as VP? I like to pick Byron Donalds, by the way, who was the opening act for Donald Trump tonight. And Byron Donalds, I think, would be a fantastic VP. He's a pit bull. He's ready to go. He's like me, born in Brooklyn, and I like him. I think he's great. I know they're both from Florida, and there's a lot of issues around having two candidates from the same place and not getting those electoral votes. Maybe that's why they're trying to win New York, and maybe he'll pick Byron Donalds so they don't have to worry about the Florida electoral votes. But anyway, I'm thinking you got Trump. Then you've got Byron Donalds as VP. And then who do we pick for press secretary? Now, some people may like this, may not like this, but I think somebody who came from the media, somebody who understands the media and can dismantle the media, and that somebody to me is Carrie Lake. Carrie Lake has a remarkable way of dealing with the media with grace, and she does it so effortlessly, and again, so graceful while she does it. She's such a class act, such a lady, and I just love seeing her chew up the media when they're trying to get slick. I think she would do a phenomenal job at running the press shop. Maybe it's not something she aspires to, but I think she's the woman for the job. Then, Attorney General. I mean, there's a lot of good people out there, right? We have so many good folks that come on this program that could fill those shoes. But one of my favorites has always been the great one, Mark Levin. I know he wouldn't do it, but man, imagine that. The Attorney General of the United States being that passionate. That would be a real sight. I would love to see that. And then Vivek Ramaswamy as Chief of Staff, White House Chief of Staff, right? I think he'd just be great at, telling people what to do and how to do and running the White House for Trump. And Chief Justice of the United States. I know he's told me no on this program, but I would love to see him on the Supreme Court. Senator Ted Cruz. Just imagine Ted Cruz replacing John Roberts. Man, what a good time that would be. And we're going to get to a lengthy clip of Ted Cruz in a moment. I think you're going to enjoy hearing it. But there's others that people want. People say they'd like to see Kristi Noem on the short list of vice presidential candidates. And I think she's a good governor. She's been under attack lately because of something she wrote about taking out her own dog on the farm and whatnot. And some people have different opinions on that. I want to go to Betty. She's in Aberdeen, South Dakota on KSDN, and she's got an opinion on it, and she's going to weigh in. Betty, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Hi, Rich. I've only been listening for a short period of time, but I'm happy to get on to talk to you. And about Kristi Noem, I really feel that the media has just started attacking her. And she has made some statements concerning the Native American tribes in the last few months that have caused her trouble too. But you brought up the thing with the dog. And when you live on a farm or you live on a ranch, things are just done a little different. And so I think that people take things out of context and they make them worse than they are. And to me, it's too bad that was the only thing they could, point out from her book is that she shot her dog. Also, there's another controversy that came up this week with her saying something about the children on the reservations and stuff. And to me, it's such a tragedy. The things, the politics with the tribes and the people and the people within the state. We're not the only state that have Native American tribes, but there are all kinds of different rules and makes it hard to do things like we would do normally, like in the city of Aberdeen.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Betty. And I don't know much about it. I don't know much about Aberdeen or even South Dakota. I'd love to go one day. But I do agree that I think Kristi Noem brings a bunch of good things to the table. And I can tell you that I think it's terrible that, she is getting beaten up about this. I would not kill a dog. I just don't think I have the wherewithal. I didn't grow up on a farm. And excuse me. And it's probably something I don't think I could do. But that doesn't mean I'm here to pass judgment on her. I'm not. Honestly, I understand how things are, and not something I would do, but hey, do what you got to do. Let the people decide. And I think the people are deciding that they didn't like that type of thing. But we will continue to see what's going on with Kristi Noem, and I appreciate you listening, Betty, and calling into the show. Big shout out to KSDN, and I want to continue. We got a couple of more calls here. Let's see. Where do we go? Let's go to Montana. Frank in Evergreen, Montana, KOFI. Frank, go right ahead.
Hey, greetings. Thanks, Rich, for taking my call. I thought that was a great performance. That was a great performance for Trump. It shows a lot of energy, enthusiasm, support of the people. He doesn't have to be, he can be doing this in public and feeling at ease, where Biden's just the opposite. He's got to be in a closet with barren walls around him. So I think he's a wimp, Biden. But anyway, as far as fair trade and the wall and all, I really think we should do a fair trade with Canada. There's only 40 million people up in Canada. Their country is 1.5 times our size, and their forests are burning. Let's give them all these illegal aliens to fight the fires at Ground Zero and in exchange for some lumber.
I'm with you. You know, we get a ton of lumber from Canada. And I was talking to somebody the other day. I don't have all the specifics, but they were schooling me on paper. Even paper that says like assembled in the USA and whatnot, or even made in the USA, like certain bags that are made in the USA. The paper for the bag isn't made in the USA. These huge rolls of paper come from Canada. We import a ton of paper from Canada. So when it comes to free trade, I think we might be experiencing a trade deficit on how much paper they import versus what we might be importing to them. But yes, maybe we have to make up that trade deficit with sending them some of the illegal aliens to help them fight their fires. I love that idea, Frank. Thank you for the call, brother. Evergreen, Montana. Shout out to KOFI. And let's see. We continue. I'm going to go to Paul. He's in Boise, Idaho. Go right ahead. KBOI.
Thanks, Rich. It's actually KIVO, excuse me.
No, it's not, but go right ahead.
Okay. All right. I'll go on with you. Hey, I listened to Trump today at the rally there at South Bronx, and he's improving, and he's in his element, if you know what I mean. He fits right in that position as a leader. He's not a follower. He's a leader. And I think that's what the trouble is with the Dems and Biden. They know he's not a leader. And they will give him suggestions until the cows come home. And he'll have to follow whatever they tell him to do.
I think you're right, Paul. And I think that's exactly what's happening. I think that's why he gets out there and he says these crazy things, because he's got advisors that tell him these things. He believes them to be true, and he just runs with it. And he's like, all right, I got rid of the pressure, and all these crazy things he says. He doesn't know what's going on. And, when he does know what's going on, it's just the business as usual muscle memory of a crooked, corrupt, fake, phony, fraud retail politician who's been doing this for a long time, and he could do this in his sleep. The part of it that he can do, smile, flash the pearly whites, put on the aviators, the huge grin, the squinty eyes. That's Joe Biden's go-to and how he's gotten through things. Sniff a few babies' hair, and voila, he thinks he's golden after he's plagiarized a speech or three. But the reality is there's more to it, and now we can see it. And now that he's losing some of his luster and his golden years, it's wearing on him. And I think people see it. Paul, thank you for the call. I appreciate it. Big shout to KBOI. And I want to continue with your calls when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Harrison. I've known him for 7 years, and I judge him by the character that he shows every single day, and that's a good person. That's someone who cares about the people around him, cares about his family, and wants to make a good impact in society. When you're in the locker room, there's a lot of people from a lot of different areas of life, and they have a lot of different views on everything, and we're not always going to agree.
That is Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback from the Kansas City Chiefs, commenting on his colleague, Harrison Butker. And I don't know either of these gentlemen, but I can say it seems like he's made an ally in Mr. Mahomes, and people seem to like Mr. Mahomes. So I think Butker is one of the good guys here, and clearly why the media and the NFL are going after him. Jim in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, KDKA, America's oldest radio station. Jim, go right ahead.
Yeah, great show, Rich. Yeah, the kicker, Patrick Mahomes is not the best quarterback in the NFL. Andy Reid said it's my kicker. Now, I saw the speech, clips of the speech. What ticks people off the most is because he talked about women's. Now, I'm 72 years old. When I grew up, women, they dreamt about getting married, having kids. If you say that today, these feminists, they take offense to it because their career is more important than their kids, and that's my opinion. And you want to have the two cars, everything real quick. I've been married for 47 years. First year, my wife worked. After that, she hadn't worked ever yet because I said to her, her job is just as much as important at home than mine out on the road. Having said that, the NFL, starting with I guess I can't remember the quarterback, Colin Kaepernick, and that kind of crap.
Taking a knee.
A lot of the people were getting turned off, the older people were getting turned on in the NFL and sports in general because of this garbage. And that's what it is. It's garbage.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jim. And I think, first of all, I want to congratulate you on 47 years of marriage. God bless you. I lasted 10 years and before I was divorced, and if I ever do it again, I hope I can be as lucky as you and get 47 years out of it, although that would make me well into my 90s, actually into my hundreds. So I don't know if I could pull that one off, but if I could, I would love to. Jim in Pittsburgh, excellent point. I don't know anything about sports when it comes to who's a better quarterback, but based on his comments, it sounds like Butker's a pretty decent guy, and I support what he was saying. I do think it's important for women to work in the home, and if they want to work out of the home, that's fine too, but we shouldn't put any woman down for wanting to be a homemaker or for wanting to be a wife. So kudos to you and great comments. KDKA in the building. And we're going to get to the rest of your calls and more in a moment. But I want to play an audio clip of Senator Ted Cruz. Now, Senator Ted Cruz took aim at a judge that was in a hearing. And this judge, Sarah Netburn, she had ruled on the issue of transgender inmates, like male, biological males, rooming with biological females, in particular, some that were rapists. Listen to this exchange.
In your court, what matters more, the rights of individuals or your political ideology?
I apply the law to the facts.
I asked a question, which matters more?
Well, my political ideology doesn't matter at all.
Okay, so I don't believe you. And I think this case demonstrates that you are willing to subjugate the rights of individuals to satisfy your political ideology. This case involves a male defendant who raped a 9-year-old boy. Was he guilty of that?
Yes, the petitioner pled guilty to that.
Okay, so he raped a 9-year-old boy. He also raped a 17-year-old girl. Was he guilty of that?
He pled guilty. The petitioner pled guilty to that crime as well.
So was he guilty?
I hope so, because she pled guilty to it.
He was a he when he did this.
That's correct.
1 year after being released again, he was convicted of having child pornography. Is that correct?
I'm unclear on exactly the time frame that you're at, but the petitioner was convicted of distributing child pornography.
Child pornography that was images of adults violently raping children.
Abhorrent conduct.
Okay.
For which there are real victims.
And this individual, 6'2", biologically a man. A minute ago, you said that when this man decided that he was a she, you said this individual was, quote, I wrote it down, sober and entirely a female. That phrase struck me as remarkable. Did this individual have male genitalia?
I think what I said, or at least what
that is a verbatim quote, entirely a female.
Sorry, what I meant to say was hormonally a female.
Okay, but that's not entirely. Did this individual have male genitalia?
Yes.
So you took a 6'2" serial rapist, serial child rapist with male genitalia, and he said, you know, I'd like to be in a women's prison. And your answer was, that sounds great to me. Let me ask you something. The other women in that prison, do they have any rights?
Is that a question you're asking me?
Yes, the other women in that prison, do they have any rights?
Of course.
Do they have the right not to have a 6'2" man who is a repeat serial rapist put in as their cellmate?
Senator Cruz, I considered the facts presented to me, and I reached a decision based on what the law
I asked you a question. Do they have a right not to have a 6'2" man who is a serial rapist put in as their cellmate? Do those women have a right to that?
Every person who's incarcerated has the right to be safe in their space.
But you didn't think so. You didn't think so. And in fact, I'm going to give some quotes from your order because Senator Kennedy is right. This is not a judge's order. This is a political activist. By the way, the beginning of your order says, at birth, people are typically assigned a gender. I got to say that would astonish a lot of Americans. A lot of Americans think you go to the hospital, a baby is born, and congratulations, you have a little boy, a little girl. The assigned a gender, I know you went to Brown, but it sounds like it's in a college faculty lounge with no bearing on reality. The Bureau of Prison argued what I'm saying right now, that if you put this person in a female prison, there will be a risk of sexual assault to the women. And you know what you did? You said you didn't care about the women. Have you dealt in what universe is someone who is a serial repeat child rapist not at a risk of reoffending?
Senator, as I do in every case.
Okay, I know you've been told to repeat the line, I follow the law. I asked a question. In what universe is someone who is a serial repeat child rapist not at risk of reoffending?
Sir, I looked at the facts that were before me in this case. All of the evidence, including the statements of every warden who had supervised this petitioner.
I have to say, if I were the father of one of those women, and you decided that my daughter's cellmate was going to be a 6'2" man who over and over and over again committed violent sexual assault, I would say the entire justice system is absurd, and it is clear on your record your political ideology matters a heck of a lot more than the rights of those women that you endangered. I think you're a radical, and I think you have no business being a judge.
I think she has no business being a judge either. That's why I want Ted Cruz to be on the Supreme Court. I think he'd make an excellent judge. He says no, and I respect that. But this is what we need. That's the type of leadership we need, and I appreciate everything he's doing. Coming to your calls. We got calls in Oregon and elsewhere coming up. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, let's go to Raymond in Roseburg, Oregon with second go. Who's your thought on with Trump's potential VP pick?
Hey, Rich, I just haven't heard a lot of people in the media talk about Tucker Carlson. I think he would be a wonderful choice.
Well, I think he's never been in government. I don't know much about him, but I'll be back tomorrow. God bless.